I met Michael Jackson at Epstein's house in Palm Beach, asked whether she massaged Jackson.
If I would hurt a child, I would slit my wrists. I would never hurt a child. This is totally false. I was outraged.
What if I told you that one single photograph was enough to drag Michael Jackson back into one of the darkest scandals in modern history? Not a confession, not a court document, just a picture. When the Epstein files were released and people saw Michael's face appear in the same batch of documents as Jeffrey Epstein, the internet exploded. Headlines moved fast. Comments moved faster. Suddenly, the king of pop was being linked to a trafficking scandal that shook the world. But here's the uncomfortable part. Being photographed near someone is not the same thing as knowing who they really are. And before we jump to conclusions, we need to separate documented facts from internet assumptions. Because once you dig into what was actually released, what was proven and what was never proven, the story becomes far more complicated than the viral posts suggest. And it starts with that photo, what the Epstein files actually revealed. When the Epstein-related court documents and images were unsealed under transparency laws, people expected a list of secret accomplices. What they got instead was a massive dump of names, flight logs, contacts, and photographs, many of them without context. Among those images was a photo of Michael Jackson with Jeffrey Epstein. That alone was enough to trigger outrage online. But here's what matters. The files did not accuse Michael of any crime. They did not link him to Epstein's trafficking network. They did not show him on flight logs tied to the island. The image was reportedly taken around 2002 or 2003 in Palm Beach.
The Justice Department recently released files that revealed several prominent celebrities on Jeffrey Epstein's contact list. Some of the names included are Michael Jackson, Alec Baldwin, Naomi Campbell, Mick Jagger, Prince Andrew, Robert F. Kennedy's late mother Ethel Kennedy, and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
During a time when Epstein was still moving in elite social circles and had not yet been publicly exposed. That distinction is critical. At that point, Epstein was known as a wealthy financier, not the monster the world later discovered. But once Michael's face appeared in those documents, people ignored the full story. And the internet did what it always does. It filled in the blanks. And that's when the narrative started shifting towards something even darker. Why Michael's name exploded again. The moment Michael's name appeared in the same set of documents as Epstein, people didn't stop to ask questions. They reacted. And honestly, that reaction wasn't random. Michael Jackson has been surrounded by controversy for decades, so when his name shows up anywhere near a scandal, it spreads fast. That's just reality. For some people, the photo felt like confirmation of something they already believed. For others, it felt like another unfair attempt to drag his name through the mud. And that divide is important, because Michael isn't just a celebrity.
If you're going to be Jack the Ripper, if you're going to be a murderer, it's not a good idea. That I'm not. That's how we were raised.
He's one of the most polarizing figures in modern pop culture. You mention his name, and emotions rise instantly. But here's what made this different. Epstein's crimes were real, horrific, and deeply disturbing. So when any famous name appears in that orbit, the reaction becomes explosive. No one wants to be connected to that darkness. And when you combine that with Michael's past legal battles from 1993 and 2003, the internet doesn't separate timelines. It blends everything together. And that blending of events is where things start to get complicated. Neverland. Sanctuary or suspicion. Neverland Ranch wasn't just a house. It was a private amusement park. Rides, a zoo, a movie theater, candy stores, fireworks. It looked like something built from a child's imagination. And for years, Michael invited sick children, underprivileged kids, and families through charities to spend time there. Supporters say it was simple. Michael lost his childhood. He was working before he even understood what normal life felt like.
Is it really appropriate for a 44-year-old man to share a bedroom with a child who is not related to him at all?
That's a beautiful thing.
That's not a worrying thing?
Why should it be worrying? Who's the criminal? Who's Jack the Ripper in the room?
So he built the childhood he never had. That's the emotional explanation. But critics saw something else. They asked uncomfortable questions. Why would a grown man create a space centered around children? Why were so many kids visiting? Why did some former visitors later make accusations? In 2005, after a full criminal trial, Michael was acquitted on all counts. Legally, he walked away innocent. But socially, the suspicion never fully disappeared. And that's important, because once doubt enters the public mind, it doesn't leave easily. Now, fast forward years later, Epstein's Island becomes known worldwide as a place where horrible things happened. So when people hear private ranch, wealthy celebrity, and children, some automatically connect dots, even if those dots aren't actually connected. And that's where the narrative online started changing. Macaulay Culkin and the long defense. For over 20 years, Macaulay Culkin has said the same thing. Nothing happened. The Home Alone star met Michael as a child at the height of his fame.
nothing happened, you know? I mean, nothing, really. I mean, we played video games, you know? We played it as an amusement park. Well, the thing is with that whole thing.
He spent time at Neverland. He stayed over. He was one of the kids people pointed to when the allegations surfaced. And when the 2005 trial happened, Culkin testified in court under oath. He said Michael never touched him, never harmed him, never behaved inappropriately. That testimony mattered, and he didn't just say it once.
That perhaps Jackson molested Culkin while he was sleeping. Prosecutors zone in saying, so as far as you know, you were never molested while you were awake. Culkin's response, as far as I know, I was never molested by Michael Jackson.
He has repeated it in interviews for years, calmly, directly, without hesitation. In fact, he's often looked frustrated that people keep asking him the same question. To him, the answer has never changed. Now, does one person's defense erase every accusation? No, but it does complicate the narrative.
I'm very happy to have him in my life.
Because when someone who had the closest access publicly defends you for decades, it forces people to pause. And that's why supporters say Neverland was a safe place, not a secret one. But the Epstein photo brought the conversation back anyway. The Bodyguard's claim and the Palm Beach context. After the Epstein files resurfaced and Michael's photo started circulating again, one of the first people to respond was his former bodyguard, Matt Fittis. He worked with Michael for nearly a decade, and he didn't stay quiet. Fittis said the photo was taken around 2002 or 2003 in Palm Beach. According to him, Michael was visiting a property he was considering buying during a house hunting trip.
That Michael Jackson was house hunting in Palm Beach. I'm not sure why that's not being reported anywhere. So that's the truth from someone who was there, who witnessed it. I didn't know who Jeffrey Epstein was. None of us did. We were in the financial world.
Epstein was present in that social circle at the time. Fittis strongly denied any deeper relationship. He said Michael didn't know who Epstein really was and called the idea of a connection nonsense.
They were not advisors to Michael Jackson, but his mansion was for sale, and that's how the picture came about. They all want a picture of Michael Jackson.
Now here's what's important. Epstein's crimes were not publicly exposed yet. He was still presenting himself as a wealthy financier moving around elite spaces. Many high-profile names appeared in photos with him from that period. That alone doesn't prove involvement. But in today's world, context doesn't always travel with the image. The picture spreads faster than the explanation. And once it spreads, people start asking a much bigger question. Guilt by association and the internet machine. In the Epstein case, hundreds of powerful names surfaced. Politicians, billionaires, celebrities, socialites, photos, contact lists, flight logs, all thrown into the public arena. And almost instantly, people started drawing lines between everyone. But here's the reality. Being photographed with someone is not the same as being part of their crimes. Epstein built his entire image around access. He wanted pictures with famous people. He wanted credibility. That was part of how he operated. The problem is, once those images are released years later, the context is gone. The timeline is forgotten. People see two faces in one frame and assume a hidden story. And with Michael Jackson, that reaction is amplified. He's already one of the most debated figures in pop culture history. So when his image appears anywhere near a scandal, it explodes, it trends. It divides people instantly. The internet doesn't slow down to ask when the photo was taken. It doesn't separate what was proven from what was rumored. It reacts emotionally first, and that emotional reaction is what keeps this story alive. But now we get to the part that really matters. How Michael Jackson tried to protect children. Michael Jackson spent a huge part of his life around children. That alone made people uncomfortable. But look at what he actually did. He donated millions to children's hospitals. He paid for medical treatments. He invited sick and poor children to Neverland so they could forget their pain for a few days. To him, Neverland wasn't just a ranch with rides and animals. It was a place where kids could feel safe and happy.
These statements about me are totally false. As I have maintained from the very beginning, I am hoping for a speedy.
The media often showed it as strange, suspicious, even dark. But many of the families who visited through charities described it very differently. They talked about laughter, movie nights, animals, and a break from real-life struggles. At the same time, the whole world was focused on Michael.
And we enjoyed it. We did enjoy it. But this allowed me to have a place behind the gates where the entire world, everything that I love is there.
Every rumor became big news. Every accusation turned into a huge debate. He was investigated, taken to court, and judged in front of everyone. But in the end, he was found not guilty. There was no conviction. Still, the label followed him for years. Now, years later, the world has seen that real child abusers were hiding in powerful circles. Some of them had money, connections, and influence. For a long time, they were not questioned the way Michael Jackson was. They were not followed by cameras every day. They were not discussed on every talk show. They were able to move quietly while the public attention was fixed somewhere else. During those same years, people were constantly arguing about Michael. His name was always in the news. Every rumor became a big story. Every accusation became a global debate. It felt like all the focus was on him. That difference is making many people question the story they were told for years. Maybe the man who was shown as a monster was not the danger people believed he was.
When other men have their Ferraris, or they have their it's an airplane or a helicopter or whatever they find, wherever they find their bliss. And my bliss is in giving and sharing and having simple, innocent fun.
Maybe he was not perfect. Maybe he was different and sometimes hard to understand. But he may have truly wanted to protect children and make them happy because he knew what it felt like to grow up without a normal childhood. As time passes, the truth often becomes clearer. Today, more people are starting to see Michael Jackson not as the villain the media painted, but as a misunderstood man whose acts of kindness were buried under years of controversy and noise. Michael Jackson lived under a spotlight most people could never survive. He was accused, judged, and debated for decades. Yet in court, he was found not guilty. Years later, the world discovered that real criminals had been hiding in powerful places all along. That contrast makes people stop and think. Maybe he wasn't the monster he was painted to be. Maybe he was a sensitive, complicated man who truly cared about children more than the world understood. Michael once said, "Lies run sprints, but the truth runs marathons. Time keeps moving, and sometimes the truth takes longer, but it doesn't stop."